Good day and welcome back. So this video is going to get into the landing pods and the landing gear for the Eagle. Again, this is me walking through what I did as I put these parts together. As with everything, it's a matter of paying attention. So we're going to go through what it takes to put the side landing pods and the gear together, what are the things I ran into, and well, hey, let's just go ahead and crack right into it. And here we go. We're going to get started on the landing gear. First step is step 16, and then as always I'm going to point out the same kind of thing we have through this entire build, and that's seam lines and mold lines. The fit on most of this kit is okay, but there are points where this is really frustrating, and here in this part is one of those. So just like always, what I do is I clip away from the part because I really want to trim into those, and it's hard to do that working off the sprue. So I clip these guys off and then trim close, and then I start looking at how they go together, and I find that they really don't, just because of the stuff that's the way it's molded. They're sort of rounded at the surface, and so when they go together, they kind of really aren't fitting great. They're just a little bit funky. So you've got the ejector pin right there at the one mount point for the oleo strut, and so let's go ahead and once I get these pieces off here, I'll clean them up just a quick little bit. And as you see, they're sort of not quite, one side fits and the other doesn't, and you can see how they sort of gap right there, right? Like that. So fix. I take some sandpaper and then I just go back and forth over this. This is 400 grit, and I want to show you, and then there we go, 400 grit. And all I do is just make it flat, and this really helps. It really helps it a lot. So I get in, get that put together, and then hit it with Tamiya thin, and it works. There's still going to need to be some cleanup where that's going to mount to the landing pod, but we'll deal with that later. But this really does clean up a lot of those seam lines where they fit. And then it's just a matter of getting them held together and clamped together. And I go ahead and I use clothespins here once I get my fingers to work, and we're all right. And I'll go through and I do all of these because then I'm going to come back to them a little bit later because we're going to need them when we get to these. So now the next part is getting the actual pads for the landing gear done, and this is where we run into again some of the issues that we have. Now they have little struts or little pins. I just take them off because I was finding that those pins make it even harder for these to fit together. But the short version is there's huge gaps on these things, and they look terrible. I go through and I try using clothespins, and even with all of this, it just doesn't work. And the gaps are they're that big, right? So I go back, grab some Bondo, hit it with Bondo, let it dry up, sand it off, and that cleans them up. Once I've done that, now they look a little bit decent. Didn't worry about the bottom as much because it's going to be landed. So once I get those done, I now move on to the rest of the parts. And again, mold lines, yada yada. I don't worry about it too much right on that part of the main strut, but overall, the mold lines and ejector pins are a little bit of an issue on the landing gear, and we'll show you here in a second. Like, these are the two pieces for the oleo struts. I guess that's what they're called. I think I remember being called that. And here, so the thing is that ejector pin is on the outside, so you will see that. And then here's what's really bad is on the oleo struts. You got this really big seam line, so those all need to be sanded off. yada yada, blah blah blah. You know, we've talked about that before. We get all those sanded off and put together, and then it's a matter of getting this main strut put in. So once you've put all the stuff together, I put the oleo strut onto the bottom, onto the pad, but I don't put it onto this top piece, because what I want to do is I want to get the main strut straight. And I found that with that oleo part on connected to the top piece, it kind of pushes that forward, and it was just a bit of a pain. So what I do is I just go ahead and get this centered, give it a shot at me within, then I just set them off to the side once I get it all straightened up. And they'll stay there. They're a little bit snug, but they're just loose enough that you want to let that stuff finish. We'll set them off to the side, let them dry. Once that's done, you're golden. Connect the oleo strut to the top part, and you're ready to go. On to step 18. Now this is where, again, orientation matters. Now if you look at part 251, you'll see the circular piece. That's only on one part. The look at the parts that tell you how to orient these things, right? Because it does matter. Now, the really cool thing is they put the pins on these things in such a way so that that first part, the part that goes to the outside, only fits on one side of the pod, which is cool. The thing is, it goes upside, or it can go, you know, up with one side up or the other side up, and that's what orients it forward and back. But it only goes on one side of the pod. You'll see here in a second when I go to put it on, you have an inside and an outside part of this main pod. And that's where I'm fitting it right now. So that's where it fits. That's the only place it fits. See, it doesn't fit on any of the other places, just that one locating point. Now, the orientation you have it on is what drives everything. So I'm constantly referring back to the drawing to see which is which, whether I'm doing D or E or D or C or whatever. And now these all go together really well. Now, I was very impressed. These fit perfect. Why some of these other parts weren't this well engineered, I don't know. But that was really frustrating. But these look great. So get that put on. I did need to go back and sand a couple things just to make sure they did stay that way. But these really do. There's very, very, very little seam work here, which is awesome. So then we go get the next part and clip off this is the part that holds in your landing gear. And then here, now, this is where I got to tell what's going on with the orientation. The gap for the landing pod piece goes opposite the part that has the circular part. So the circular part's up and the gap for the landing pod arm is down. That, by the way, this is for 18C. So that's how you find out what's what. So once I do that, I get the correct inboard side piece in. Again, glue it in, right? And then the cool thing is the part for the strut that only goes a certain way. Again, get it in, glue it in. Then we go find what is the right top piece for this, and there we go. See, there it is. So we clip that off, clean it up, get it put in place, and then we have one of them. Now what I do is I wrote in marker on the inside piece or inside tip which letter this was, so that I knew which one, and I could then mark those off and make sure I was doing them right. But these all go together really, really well. You can see the lines and the connections are really nice. You do have to clean up the support arm just because of the way those seams fit. You know, I just hit them with clothespins, and you know that holds those pieces together. Otherwise, that's it. So we just go and do 4 of those.
This is the end of step 23. So what I did is I skipped from 19 to 23, just because if you look at the display here, I can show you. Right, so if you look at the instructions, you go from 19 down to 23. So a couple things I want to talk about with these. Now, when I look at the the instructions, they don't show this hole. They show they show a single hole when you glue it together, but what they don't show when they put the thing together, when they show this in step 23, they don't show where these holes go. And then as I look through all of the other, as I look at 23, it doesn't show, it shows that there's no hole on both sides, on the side that this is facing. And I believe it's this orientation. It says there's no hole on the side. There is no way with the way these go together. Now you see how that's like that? And this is at an angle like this. There is only one way to put this together. There's only one way for those to mesh up, and that's this. I don't believe these holes have any part that go to them. And as I look at the instructions going all the way through, step 26 is the final step in this kit for putting together the piping for the engines. And I don't see any piping going into this. So I feel like I'm going to have to fill those holes. And I've taken a look at the instructions here. Right? So let me pull these guys down. I actually have these things up on my my board right in front of my face, right? So we go through here. We go through here, right? And we look at these. And that's what I'm talking about. And then as I look through here very carefully, these pieces connect to those little nozzles there. These pieces connect to the framework, but nothing else, right? Let's see this. These pieces here connect to the framework, and then these big nozzles go on, but there's nothing else connecting to those round spheres. Then I come down and we cut back to, here's where that section goes on. And again, nothing going into the spheres. And as we get to this, nothing going into the spheres. So I feel like I'm going to have to fill those. I could pull out the instruction kit for the other one to see if there are supposed to be ones there. I'm guessing there are. Because I do have the old pod, the old, not the old, but the non-laboratory pod. And like I said, this kit is supposed to have the different plumbing for the engines that come with Eagle 2, which come with the lab pod, because they did, when they built this, they built it differently. So anyway, that is a bit of a getcha, and I feel like I'm going to have to do something about that. And matter of fact, I'm just going to do something about that. I'm going to go ahead and fill those and sand those down so they will be done. Let's talk about another getcha. And I believe I mentioned these before, or I may have mentioned these in the voiceover, but I'm going to cover this again. These guys, right? And these are steps 18. Basically, this is step 18. So this is, the orientation of these is actually important because this piece goes to the outer forward or outer rear. So they go kitty catty corner from the support. This piece can go up either way, and I believe I point this out in when I'm actually assembling these. What I did is I actually wrote C and D, A and B, so that I know which these are. Because A, so 18B is front starboard, 18A is front port. So this is actually the front of the Eagle. This is the rear. So this is D. So this is the rear starboard and rear port. All right, so that's the Eagle's going this way. I will clean these up, but I do find that most of this isn't going to be seen, but I am going to clean up these seams. These go together fairly well. I do need to go through and do a little bit of cleanup on the seams here, but these actually fit very well. But I want to call that out. I want to call out that orientation because I looked at these over and over and over, and every time I did one of these, I referred back to the instructions like 5 times. I still mucked this one up. letter B, the front starboard, I got this flipped over. And I found this when I went to do 18A, because I was putting this together like it was 18B, and I realized I was wrong when I took this piece off, and I realized, crap. So I actually had to take this apart, and you can do that with Tamiya Thin. You can just kind of run Tamiya Thin around. It loosens up your joints. You can pop it back out. But that was important. So pay attention to those when you're putting those together. So with that, I'm going to call this section or this episode of putting together the eagle. We're gonna stop here at step 19/23. We will pick up next time with step 20 and do the big bottles, and then skip ahead and put the rest of the engine, the main motor assembly together. So that's as far as we've gotten. That's sort of the collection of where we are. I hope so far this has been useful, entertaining, and so forth. At least an entertaining series to watch. Until next time, I thank you again for watching, and happy modeling.